Daniel, welcome to the show, brother.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm really happy to be here. We've just been talking a little bit, and I think you're a marvelous human being, and I just wanted to put that on the record as we get started because you've
Honored.
got such a beautiful heart, and you're doing such beautiful work, and it's really an honor to bump into you on the road here.
Love it. I'm honored by the words. And, I've been reading your words of wisdom for many, many years on Facebook. And for those of you who are listening to this and not watching on YouTube, Daniel has, white flowing hair, a big white beard. He looks like a rabbi. We'll talk about that as well, right? On the journey of how you got to where you are today. But you always speak with such empathy, such light, such positivity. And in the
Thank
world that we're living in today, that's a breath of fresh air. So I appreciate that from you.
Love you, brother. Thank you.
Love you back. So
We only see what we are, so I'm gonna leave that for you.
love that. Thank you. I'll take it and I'll accept it. As I was diving deeper into who you were and you're about, there's so many incredible things that you've done in your life, just to like tidbits, and then we'll get into the history of those. Went to yeshiva, walked out one day before getting the smicha. You became a monk for 10 years. You ran Hay House, which is such an incredible company. You were
Correct. I wasn't the president, but I was director of business development at Hay House. So the area that I was in was what grew.
correct. I believe business development is what grows companies many times,
Totally, totally.
right? And just you've had so many, you're an author, a coach, and you've had so many great experiences in your life. I'd like to first start out with that one where you told me about walking out from yeshiva the day before. First of all, did you grow up in a family that was religious? How did you get to first go to rabbinical school?
So um, my dad, who was an Orthodox Jew,
Okay.
sort of a Reformed Orthodox Jew, he wasn't, Pious and all that, but he was an Orthodox Jew, grew up Orthodox, married my mom, who was a Reformed Jew. So I became the conglomeration of that, and we were part of a conservative, synagogue. And the synagogue was 4 blocks from our house. So we lived in a very Jewish community in Philadelphia. And Judaism was always a part of my life. And I was one of the few kids that I knew in my neighborhood that said, when can I start Hebrew school? Like I really was drawn, something in my soul was drawn to a different way of life than the way families were living around us. And so I was really pulled to it. But as I got more and more into it, what I felt for myself was there were a lot of rules, and I didn't see in the people that were going to the synagogue the happiness that I saw in my life. I saw a very, very I saw people that followed the rules, that followed a tradition, that got joy from that tradition. But I didn't see, like, I was looking for happiness. I was looking for this deep peace. And then on top of that, my father passed away when I was 13 years old.
Mm, rough
He
blow.
died, he died of a heart attack making love to my mom.
Wowza.
And so the message he left with me was live and die for love. Just don't let anything get in the way of you loving this world, of you loving the people in it, of you being a lover of life. And my dad was 12 years older than my mom. So my dad died at 60, and 2 years later, my mom passed away on the exact same day
Oh,
at 50. And she had developed cancer. And I remember her, and cancer in those days, nobody knew what it was. I remember reading her journal in the hospital, and she said, just a couple more days, Al, and I'll be with you. My father's name was Al. And so she had already knew that she was waiting for the 4th of July to somehow symbolically go on the day that he went so that that would leave a message of their union even stronger. And so she passed away, and we were in a lower middle class family at that point. And I grew up with such an appreciation for family. And I was not, we lived in an Ozzie and Harriet. I don't know if you're old enough to even know Ozzie and
I
Harriet.
know who they are. Yeah.
Yeah, but we lived in one of these idyllic sort of families where we didn't have much money, but we the basis of our household was love. When my mom passed away, she had a sister who lived in the Midwest. We were in Philadelphia. And they were kind enough to say, okay, you're going to come with us. And so, but I didn't know them. So I moved, my brother came for a couple of months and then went to college and was gone. And so suddenly I was with this household of strangers in a city that I didn't know, but they were exceedingly wealthy, exceedingly wealthy. And so suddenly I was, a part of a family that was a wealthy family, and I had no idea what that influence meant. Suddenly, I was a stranger in a strange town, but suddenly all the kids my age wanted to be around me. And I thought, I'm not that, I know, like, look at me, I'm not that magnetic, so I know something's going on. But I developed really beautiful friendships there. And it was a really, really nice thing until I told my uncle that I was not going to take over his business. And he, like any person in the world would be, said, Danny, he didn't call me an idiot, but he probably should have. He said, what in the world would get in the way of you doing? You've already had a very hard life. Why would you turn your back on something that could make your life so beautifully easy, where you could have just anything you wanted? Because if you were to do this, it's basically running on its own. You would come in, you just would not mess it up. I'll make sure I'll train you. You're 15 years old now. Give me 15 years with you, and you'll be able to do it. You'll be able to do this with your arms behind your back.
Yeah.
By the time you're 30, you'll be in a seat of a very, very powerful company, and you'll be completely prepared for it. There's no chance of failing. Why would you walk away at 17 years old before you even had the opportunity to try? And I looked at him and I said, out of respect for you. And he said, well, it doesn't sound very respectful to me. I said, well, let me explain then. This is your baby. You created this. I don't feel it like you feel it. It's just not mine. And I can't be good at something that I don't think is mine. Even if I was, it wouldn't make me happy. And the key for me in my life is finding the happiness that I lost when my mom and dad passed away. And I just want to do that happy, no matter if I'm poor, no matter if I don't have any. He said, if you make that decision now, I'm going to understand that you don't have the capacity to make good decisions. And I'm going to ask you to leave our family.
Wowza. Okay.
I'm basically going to excommunicate you from it. You're not welcome.
It was like a disrespect to him with you saying that's not what I want.
And to all of his friends who thought, oh, he finally has somebody who could be a son that could take it over, and it was all heralded that this was what was going to be happening. And so it was really a slap in his face. And I meant no slap in his face.
Yeah.
I just didn't think I could be happy. So at 17 years old, I said, I'm going to leave the house. You had mentioned that you would pay for college. Do you want to withdraw that now? I completely understand if you do. He said, no, I gave you my word. I'd pay for your college. And so I went to 2 years of college in California. And I took in the first 2 years all the courses I would need to give me an undergraduate degree in psychology. And so I was going to be ended up taking 2 more years of filler courses just to get the diploma. And I said, screw this. I'm not even interested in psychology. It doesn't have the answers for me that I'm looking for. And I dropped out of college, which was something that was not in the pattern. That was not in the blueprint of anything that I'd ever been given, that I would drop out of college. And they went ballistic. He said, walking away from the business is one thing, dropping out of college is, absolutely is another. So we're done.
Wow.
You're on your own. And so going from nothing to this mountain of abundance that I was sitting on the top of, going back to nothing, was really an interesting way to start my life out. And what I have to say is, I think I learned very quickly something that I don't think I would have learned before. Because everybody I knew equated money with happiness. And they said, if I would only have this, I would be happy. If I would only be able to do this, I would be happy. If I would only be able to live here, I would be happy. I didn't have that equation because I had all that. And so I had to really find what was going to make me happy. I don't want to monologue the whole thing because I couldn't.
No, this is awesome. I mean, I'm going to guess that that's when is that when you made the decision to go to yeshiva? Is that when, like, what, after you left everything, you started your life 17, 18 years old, you went to college, dropped out. They said, you're done. Where did Danny go from there? What happened?
Good. So, going to yeshiva was about as far away from my reality as it could possibly be. I had just started getting involved. In college, I did some drugs, or it was the 60s, 70s. So of course I did. And the drugs for me are different than the drugs that happen now. They were I don't know if it was the hallucinogenic parts of the drugs but it wasn't like like what's happening now amongst kids is they're taking drugs that are not good for them.
Yeah.
The drugs that I took then just blew my mind open. It broke through the barriers of my mind and said, look, this is possible. And I finally said, this is what I want all the time. And so I started to get into yoga and meditation. And I just loved the practice of not having to come, like in drugs, I got high and then I came down. I said, I want to be high and never come down. So I started to practice meditation and I realized that I could actually meditate and I could actually feel contact with this infinite source that was flowing all through us, all of us, every one of us can, that was flowing through us at any point in time. And I could just connect with that. And the more connected I was to that, the happier I was. It was as if that force said, Danny, come into my car. Sit in the passenger seat. You don't have to drive the car right now. Just sit in the passenger, sit in the back seat, and let me take you to a world that you've never seen before. And I got so excited by that world. Then I said, I want to drive. I wanted to explore. I want to do that. They said, take your time. You'll have time to do all that. But just sit now and enjoy. And so I was en route to India when I went to the Western Wall. I was in Israel. I was on a kibbutz for 9 months. I thought I'm going to go sit at the Western Wall because, I'm about to go on a trip. I'm going to ask to be cleansed and purified and blessed. And I sat at the Western Wall and I met this rabbi there. And he said, what do you do? There was some holiday. He said, what are you doing for the holiday? I said, I didn't even know it was a holiday. He said, okay, well, then you're coming with me. And I said, where are we going? He said, we're just going up the hill here. So the Western Wall was, in the old city, and his yeshiva was on Mount Zion. So it was a short walk. It was a 20-minute walk, not even. And he walked with me to the yeshiva and showed me around and said, I don't want to impose on you, but why don't you stay for a few days? Why don't you just be our guest, stay and see what goes on here? And I said, what does go on here? And he answered me in a very surprising way. With his left hand, he moved his hand back, and then he hit me as hard as he could over my heart. And I said, whoa, what are you doing? What was that? I said, I didn't expect that's what's going on here. He said, yeah, I know. He said, what we're going to do is we're going to break your heart open.
Mm.
And we're going to then pull at it and pull at it and pull at it until everybody you meet feels a piece of it. Because you have a big heart that's not operating well right now. And I said, well, how's that going to happen? You're going to hit me? Are you going to continue to hit me? He said, no, it's the last time I'm going to hit you. But it's going to happen by you just being here with us. And if you're interested, come. You make your own choices. If that interests you, come and be with us. I said, let me have the night to think about it. And I walked away and I went to stay with a friend who I was with. And at 6 o'clock the next morning, I showed up back up at the yeshiva. And I said, I have no idea what I'm getting myself into, but it's irresistible. I just have to be here. And I was like his son. He had 13 kids, but I was like his son. And we did everything together. He took me wherever he went, and then we would sit in classes together. And he said, "Danny, you're unprepared. Why are you unprepared?" I said, "Well, I'm running around with you all the time. I'm doing all the things with you." He said, "Well, have you noticed? I'm not unprepared. I'm completely prepared." So I said, "Yeah, but you've been doing this. I'm just a Bali Tshuva." And he said, "No, that's not the reason." He said, "What are you doing between 2 and 4 every morning?" I said, "Sleeping. What are you doing?" He said, "I'm in the study hall here. That's the difference." He said, "From now on, I'll meet you at 2 o'clock in the morning here in the study hall. And it'll be just you and I. Everybody else is asleep." At 2 o'clock in the morning, I came down just in sort of house clothes. And he said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm coming here. I'm here. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm here." He said, "Go upstairs and put your suit on." I said, "It's 2 o'clock in the morning." He said, "I know, but this is the study hall. You don't come into the study hall like that." So I went back up, changed, and for about 2.5 years, I sat with him every morning from 2 to 4.
Wow. When did you sleep? Like nine to two?
I don't know if it's been since that. It's really interesting because to this day, I don't sleep very much.
Mm.
And I don't know if that was the time when I started that. I don't know. I remember being a ferocious sleeper before, but somehow in sleep, for me at least, in sleep, I get rest. But when I have a rest that's so much greater than the rest of sleep,
Mm.
I don't need the rest of sleep. I can sleep less. And that's what I found in my life. There's somehow been an energy that has been soothing to me, calming to me, relaxing to me. And that energy has been the energy of actually being myself, of being not in opposition to myself, but just being myself. I spent so much time in opposition to myself, in this war that pulls me, that this is who you are. No, but I don't want to be that. That's not cool. That's not the way to be. This is the way it should be. To just quieting down that shatter of the mind and just being free to be me. And in that freedom, there's ultimate rest.
As you're saying the story and you talk about, be yourself and the freedom to be you, I want to ask, is that why, at some point you were studying in the yeshiva, you left the yeshiva and you went to go be a monk, right, for 10 years? And we'll talk about that a little bit. And then you went to go, director of business development at Hay House. And of course, I'm going to have to ask at some point if you ever met, Dr. Wayne Dyer or worked with him or whatnot.
Of course. Well, I mean, I brought a lot of those guys in.
Yeah, he was the first personal development person I ever listened to when I was young, just on TV, NPR, and The Shift, the movie. But we'll get into that. And was it just because you knew that you wanted to be yourself and find that happiness that you just said like, oh, I don't need the certificate on the wall that says rabbi, I can go do something else now. Like I've gotten the knowledge, I've come to where I am. It's off to the next journey.
Yeah, I questioned myself because literally at the yeshiva, if I would have spent 3 more days, I would have been ordained. And I always thought, well, why won't you just get why are you so stupid? Why don't you just you can
Just
leave with
get it.
you can leave with an ordination too. It's not that's not going to be like a blur on your record. It's going to
Mm.
be a nice thing. You
Yeah.
could finish school, you could have finished college and got your undergraduate degree. But there was something inside me that I don't really understand that just compelled me that when the moment was over, it was over.
Mm.
And it was like you come and you're there and you give all of your energy to the moment. And when that energy changes and it's over, you leave. It's just not your place anymore. Go.
My question comes up as a father. And this is coming up because I just came from a trip, 3 weeks. We went to Europe to a wedding, and there were days I wanted to cancel the trip and go back home.
Yeah.
Days that, we took pictures with the family. It was beautiful with my wife and the kid. I mean, top of the Eiffel. It was just incredible. But there were some days I want to throw in the towel. And a lot of people say, like, oh, you're married, you have kids, you can't just give up. I'll never forget when I left the pawn shop, my dad looked at me seriously and he said, how will you make money? And my answer was the way everybody else who's not a pawnbroker makes money, right? Like there was just like this idea of like, how can you leave the family business?
Yeah.
And then I built this coaching company within the pawn shop industry. And then when I left that, everyone's like, how can you leave that? And I made a post today. I said, did a podcast. I gave everything I wanted to give, and it was done. It was like
Yeah.
the giving in that moment was over for that industry was done, and it's time to move on.
Yeah.
So I understand what you're saying. There's also the realistic part of me that says, well, you have responsibilities, you have things to do. Back then you were single and no kids and you could drop and go. And so how does somebody find happiness today when they're a father, they're a husband, they have a business and they're just like, oh, it's not anymore.
Yeah. And I don't mean this to sound irresponsible because I understand how irresponsible it can sound. And so if anybody hears this and says, oh, that's irresponsible, trust your own instincts and say, that's not for me, what he's saying. Like this isn't, I'm not proselytizing. I'm not trying to change anybody's point of view. All I'm
Yeah,
doing today is sharing with you my
sure. Yeah.
perspective. That doesn't mean that I'm sharing it with you because I think you should follow me. To the adarabba, to the actually to the opposite side. I think you should do whatever you can not to follow me. And if you can't do anything else, then you can sort of take this in and listen to it. Uh, there, for me, my happiness and my joy doesn't come from what I'm doing or how much money I'm making. It doesn't come from how many people like me or don't like me. It comes from this simple sense of do I feel content in the life that I'm living?
Mm.
Am I proud of myself? Not proud with an egoic proud, but that pride that says, I nailed it today. I feel so good about the way this day went, not because of the results or the money or any of it, because I just I feel alive. I feel so alive doing what I'm doing that feels good. And I've had the mistake of thinking, oh, because I felt so alive yesterday doing this, that tomorrow should come and I bet I would feel more alive doing that. And as soon as I started to have that thought, my aliveness started to diminish.
Mm.
Because for me, my aliveness seems
Yeah.
to come in being able to adapt to moments, being able to feel, be okay. I'm sort of on the brink of making myself feel even more weirdo than I am already,
Feel free.
but that's okay.
No judgment. Feel free.
Um, again, this is not a follow me statement. The greatest joy I have is being in harmony with my creator, is sort of being able to say, not because a book tells me this is his will, because sometimes what the book says and what I do when I feel the most joyful are completely at opposite ends. My joy comes when I can feel that presence moving so strongly through me that there's nothing else I can do but do what? Walk in the direction of that. And I can't say I feel that all the time. I can't say I feel that most of the time. But the fact that I felt it some of the time, the fact that I know that feeling, that's my zenith. That's the mountain I'm always looking to be on, not on top of. That's my Mount Sinai. That's where my commandments come from. That's the place where I receive my creator. And I receive that creator sometimes in the stillness of my meditation, and oftentimes just in the chaos of the marketplace. It doesn't have to be this is holy, this is unholy, this is righteous, this is not righteous. Having the freedom to honor the rules, but not have to follow them. Because sometimes in my life, again, do not follow me, okay? But sometimes in my life, what's happened is following the rules that have been set out for people to follow has not brought me the joy. Shattering those tablets has brought me.
Oh, something comes up for me. I was at a wedding some years ago, and it was a religious wedding, and they did the hamotzi. Everybody sat down to eat, and all of a sudden they started to yell, "Arvit, Arvit, Arvit!" And the men stand up and they go outside the social hall, and they're praying. They just served me my steak. I was starving, right? Like the wedding was long, and it was like there was just so much going on. I just wanted to sit and eat. So I sat and I ate. And so there was lots of rabbis in the room. And I asked one rabbi, I said, "Rabbi," I said, "we did hamotzi, pray on the bread. Dinner was served, and people started to yell to go pray. Do I sit and eat, or do I go pray?" And he said, "Yigal, you have a minyan. You're obligated to go pray with a minyan. So you get up and you go." I went to another rabbi who kind of said the same thing. And the third rabbi, I asked him the same question: "Rabbi, do I get up and eat? Do I get up and pray? Or do I stay and eat?" And he looked at me and he said, "What makes you happy?"
Beautiful.
And I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Would getting up and praying with the minyan make you happy? Or would sitting down and eating your steak make you happy?" I said, "Eating my steak." He goes, "Judaism is to be done with joy.
Beautiful.
If you don't do Judaism with joy, it's not Judaism."
Beautiful.
And the words were ingrained in my heart, my soul at that moment, because the other rabbis were saying, like, "No, this is the rule. It's 7:15. It's time to go pray. You have to go." And he was like, "What makes you happy?"
Yeah. So your story touches me so much. And it touches me for several reasons. One, because I just loved the third rabbi, as you probably assumed I would.
Yep.
And yet, what I love is that whole process. And for me, one of the things that I like most about Judaism, they actually made a joke about it. They would say, find out what you want to believe and then find a rabbi that says it's okay to believe.
I've heard it. Yep.
But the beauty of it was the many facets of interpretation that some simple 6 or 7 words could elicit. And that there is no steadfast right or wrong. There are people in the Orthodox community, and I don't mean to say against anything, but there are people with an Orthodox set of beliefs that would say, no, this is what it means. When it says this is what it means. But the beauty to me is there are some people within that same Orthodox community that would say, ha, 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 ha. Of course that's what it means. but this is also what it means.
Yeah.
And if you can't do it with joy, then what are you doing? So you can be a saint, but why would you choose to be a sad saint?
Mm.
A sad saint is just a sad saint. Be joyful, be happy, be alive. Make sure you're not breaking any laws. But if you don't daven with the minyan, you can still say your prayers.
Of course.
I mean, surely you can say a few more and you have the power of the group, but you were just served a beautiful steak. And isn't it a little disrespectful to leave the place setting of a place where you just were offered a meal and say, no, I'm going to go do something else? If you had somebody come to your house and you just served them a beautiful dinner and they said, I'm sorry, I've got to go now and go someplace else for whatever the appointment was, whether it's davening or whether it's just shopping or whether it's whatever, I would feel like, I don't know when I'm going to invite them back again.
True that. No, I agree. And what I'm hearing from you is, that what's also coming up is within the community, the community that I'm in, joy isn't a metric that's asked about.
Mm.
Joy isn't a metric that's helped. It's how's business, how's the family, how are the kids, how it's all that stuff as opposed to, are you happy?
Yeah. And if I could, you're brilliant in what you do. Because if I could pinpoint for you why I left, it wasn't because I didn't fall in love with the religion. It wasn't because I didn't love the practice. It wasn't because I didn't see myself as a beautiful Jewish man and with the possibility of expanding the way Judaism was. It was really because I didn't see that joy.
Mm.
I saw glimpses of it in the few people that I met.
Yeah.
But I thought, they're just extraordinary people. I'm just a normal guy. I have to be able to see it in everyone because, like, for me to be able to experience it, I'm not going to be one of those exceptional people. I mean, maybe, but who wants to think that I'm going to live my life with the thought that I'm an exceptional person? I'm just a guy on the bus. And if I can't look over to you and have that joy with you, just in the everyday experience of being holy men together. And when I say holy, it's not Holy, it's Wholy. A man with holes in.
Oh, I love that. A whole man.
And
Go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say this going after joy for you in the places that you've been, the yeshiva, the being a monk, working at Hay House. Was it, for example, working at Hay House, which is a very, I see from the outside, all about enlightenment, personal development, joy, happiness, right? Um, while you were there, was it because there was joy? Was that more for money, and when you left, was it like, this chapter is over, it's time to keep going?
Um, I bumped into Hay House by accident. I met Reed, who was running Hay House, somewhere. And we just started talking and we liked each other. And I didn't really ask what he did. I didn't really care. It wasn't very big in those days. It was doing a few $1,000,000 a year. It was a nice company, but as many things as it attracted me to it, there were as many things that didn't attract me to it. At a $3 million mark, a lot of people change from good people to sort of important people. And I didn't ever want to be an important person. I mean, I think I got trapped in it a little bit too in my life, and that's why I didn't like it. But the more we sat together, and the more I remember looking at him and saying to him, will you let me break this model that's held you stuck? And he said, well, you're going to have to talk to Louise. And I said, okay, great, bring it on, let's do it. And I sat with Louise, and Louise, as beautiful as she was outwardly on their outward persona, she had a lot of stuff going on in her that wasn't all that attractive. And so I wasn't one of the people that was enamored with her. In fact, the more I got to see her, the less enamored I was. And she was also a really beautiful person. Like, don't forget the last part of what I said. Okay, but it made me see that beautiful people, and it was in everyone that I saw in Hay House. The authors, the people outside of Hay House, that we all have something exquisitely beautiful. And we also have, the more we grow, the flaws that we have grow along with us.
Mm-hmm.
And so the flaws become bigger and more pronounced. And you know, unfortunately, for most of us, the goodness outshines that most of the time. But I just felt when I was there that it had given me a lot. And I just wanted to be able to give back to it. Give back to it, not in the way of bringing in money. It didn't need me to bring in money. But I wanted to give back to it by bringing heart and bringing like a lot of heart into it. Because the people that were there, the people that were drawn to it, were people that wanted to have their hearts changed. Mm-hmm. And I didn't see that. I saw the intellect tantalized. And these are like, every statement I'm making sounds so black and white. It's not black and white. Clearly, there was a lot of heart there. But I felt like there was a heart transplant that needed to happen. Mm. And probably it was for me more than anybody else, but it did happen for me there. And the people that I met they were no longer authors for me. They were my friends. And we would sit together, and I was one of the few people that they were able to come to and tell me all this terrible stuff that was going on in their life. Because they knew that I would honor their space and not share it, and just hold the space for them to be able to do it. And I remember after a couple of times doing it with somebody, I said, okay, it's just like, let's exhale now. How you feel? I said, I just feel so good. You know, there's something about you that makes people feel good. How come you're not writing and doing this? I said, it's not my place yet. This isn't where I'm. Like, right now, my place is to hold the space for you. And that was really beautiful. I was proud of myself. Because sometimes our place is not to be running the three-ring circus. It's just to be the little elephant in the back that raises his trunk up and say, whoa, you know, and I don't know. I haven't thought about my life in these things for a while now. But when I look back on it, I smile, because there have been so many different adventures.
Incredible.
So many different people that I've met.
And as you're saying it, you know, the smile on your face collaborates with the words coming out of your mouth.
Yes, because I really feel it. I feel it's such an honor to be able to look back on life and be proud of yourself for the life that you've lived. Mm. Not that there haven't been major spillages and major blots and major things, you know. But in general, when I look back on my life and I see the life that I'm living, I'm proud of myself. I'm happy that I could be here, and I'm happy that life treated me in such a way that I could treat it in such a way that would bring some joy.
Beautiful. I want to ask you, for somebody who's listening, who is going through some heavy stuff, right? Might be going through some marital issues, might having financial issues. And you said, you know, I get joy with connecting with my creator. That's my Mount Sinai. You know, it was such great storytelling, and it's beautiful. What advice do you have for them to be able to see the joy in what they're going through, or to be able to add joy to what they're going through?
Great question. Again, I don't put myself on any sort of platform that says I can teach anybody anything. I'm willing to share with you what I feel for me has worked.
Mhm.
But that doesn't mean it'll work for you. But try it. If it feels right, try it. Blessing comes in a lot of different costumes. And for me, what I've realized is when I disregard the costume and focus more on the blessing,
Mm.
I find that it doesn't matter if the costume looks pretty or not, if it's the hero or the villain, if it hurts people or helps people. What all that's important is that that guy with the big G on his sweatshirt has a way of saying to me, Danny, I need you to see something. And I find that he normally tries to offer to me in like a rose. He tries to offer to me in a kind word. He tries to offer to me with a hug. But sometimes I'm too arrogant and I don't see all those things. And so then he gives me a little slap on the butt. And if I don't feel the slap on the butt, he gives me a chest, a punch in the chest. If he doesn't punch in the chest doesn't work, he takes me out. He literally tackles me down and says, come on, man. And if I'm still on the ground and I'm still fighting, he said, like, your arms are too short to box with me. You're never going to be able, this isn't a war that you want to be involved in. This is a war you want to figure out how to embrace, not like you can't beat me in the boxing ring. So stop fighting. And just the bliss of surrender is as victorious as the bliss of victory. And we just have to know when those moments are there, what it is that life is asking us to do so that we can experience this bliss. It doesn't matter in the end. Does it matter how many times I won or lost? No, but it does matter how many moments of bliss I've lived.
I don't know if you can see the emotion. That was deep, brother, because the last couple of years, my family's gone through some tough moments,
Yeah.
and the way you just like laid it out was like, take a deep breath, and I saw it, like you're like, he might smack you on the tuchus a little bit, but no, you don't like that. Your ego gets in the way, it gives you a punch to the heart. No, tackles you down, and I'm gonna end the podcast here because it's such a beautiful moment that, and I always say that God puts people on this podcast for me to learn from. And then if somebody else gets value from it, then may it be so. But I want to thank you for being on. It's been beautiful. I don't even think we were overdue. I think this was the right exact moment for you and I to connect over Zoom and have this conversation.
Well, it's an honor to be with you. It's an honor to sit in your presence because you have the ability to draw out of me something that most people just pass by. And so if anything good came out of me, I appreciate your crediting me for that, but I want to equally credit you for holding the space to allow me to open in a way that feels comfortable enough to share the intimacy of my soul.
Thank you, brother. And I have this feeling that we're gonna do this again.
I
That
hope so.
the conversation's not over.
I would love that. I would
Yeah.
love.
So, gentlemen, if you enjoyed this podcast, you can go to danielbruceliving.com. He has a beautiful book called Mosaic, and just follow him, because seriously, for the years I have been following you on social media, it's just inspiring and motivating to see the words that you say. It's been an honor, brother. May you be blessed with strength and courage. Chazak ve'ematz. And thank you once again for being here.
Wow, thank you.
And for those of you listening, stay tuned for the next episode of the Tribesmen Podcast.